Hey guys, Ronin here. Welcome on back to the Retrocade. It is Sunday, and that means it is time once again for another Suckerpunch Sunday. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, hit the like button, and ring the bell for the latest updates on content. We post 5 days a week, 3 times Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and twice on Saturday, or twice on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday, I should say. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at rretrocade, again, rretrocade, and we are continuing on with our walkthrough, our first-time playthrough of the 1994 Super Nintendo Entertainment System Classic Final Fantasy VI, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. If you have a game that you'd like to see featured here on the channel, be sure to leave it down in the comment below. You can choose from the following systems across the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th generation: the Nintendo Entertainment System, Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, and PlayStation 2. It can be any game you want. We do these features on the weekends, and if you tuned in yesterday for Sports Saturday, I finally notched my first win of the year on the NES classic basketball game, Double Dribble. Now we're going to jump ahead in time to 1995-96, and we're going to try out a game that I only first saw in arcades back in the waning days of my interest in going to arcades, but got a port over to the PlayStation 1, and that is Soul Edge, also known as Soulblade or Soulcalibur in later variations. This version for the PlayStation 1 is Soulblade. I remember seeing it in the arcades I used to play in Portland, Oregon, back in my late teenage years as Soul Edge, and then subsequent variations of it. They finally went ahead and got it sorted out, did Namco, and just said, okay, it was originally called Soulcalibur, we'll go back to calling it Soulcalibur. So, this was a game I had limited access to, because by the time it came out, I wasn't really venturing into arcades that much. In Portland, we were fortunate. We had a arcade franchise that was there that was called Wonderland, also known as Electric Castle, and they had locations throughout the greater Portland area. There was a couple over where I lived. I don't know why this is not letting me hit start sooner than later. There we go. But the cool thing about Wonderland was it was a nickel arcade. It wasn't like standard arcades where you need quarters. You go in, you would pay like $2.50, and then as long as you could get nickels out of the change machine, you could play till you ran out. The trade-off was that there were very, very few games that had any sort of capacity limited to 1 or 2 nickels. If you want to play a game like Soulblade, it was usually like a 3-nickel game. So you'd still burn through them as fast as you did quarters. It was just you tended to be able to have a bit more at your disposal. Now, I think there's maybe 1 or 2 Wonderland locations that might still be around. I don't know. I haven't been back in Portland in about 6-7 years, so I'm not entirely sure. If you are in the area and you know it's still around, leave me a comment. Let me know. Keep me honest on that front. What I do know is there is a fantastic Retrocade in town, and if you ever make your way over to Portland, go check it out. It's downtown on 2nd and Cooch. It's spelled couch. It's Cooch. And spare me the jokes. That's how they call it. That's how it's pronounced there. And it's called Ground Control. And Ground Control, about the time I left in 2016, was in the process of expansion. It used to take up half a city block. Now it takes up a whole city block. So, yeah, if you're in the neighborhood and you're looking for things to do, I would say get there early because it tends to be packed. Although, given current COVID restrictions and whatnot, it might not be at the present time, but hopefully it's at least open. And, yeah, you can go enjoy it. But, anyway, Soul Edge, or Soulblade in this case, is a 3D sword fighting game, for those who are unfamiliar with it. And, again, it was produced by Namco in 1995. It came out on the PlayStation in late 1996. And they've gone on to do quite a few variations and sequels of it. But we're going to play the original one here for the next 25 minutes or so. And it was one of the first 3D fighting games that really looked like it was taking advantage of the new technology well. A lot of the early 3D games, while decent in terms of mechanics, didn't really have the look down because the characters are still very blocky, very chunky, very pixelated because the technology had not been perfected yet. So we have at our disposal 10 characters in this original game, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to take Mitsurugi. And it is no different than any other fighting game of the time where you are playing... I'm going to pause it right here just so I don't get slaughtered in this first game. But as you can see, it's set up in the same general form as a game like Street Fighter or Tekken, where you have opposing fighters and you just best 2 out of 3 determines the winner. You have special moves, you have options. You don't have as many special moves in a game like this as you do in, say, Street Fighter, which really by this stage had gone to great lengths to give you a lot of different ways to beat your opponent up. Same with Mortal Kombat. Obviously, you have the fatalities, babalities, animalities, all that stuff. But this was a bit more streamlined. It was a little bit simpler. But unlike other games like Virtua Fighter and even the early Tekken and maybe Tekken 2, although by that point it was starting to evolve and was taking advantage of the new capabilities that you had with 3D. This one I tend to like a little bit more. The controls are pretty straightforward. You have a parry button, which is your square button, and again, I'm playing this on PCSXR, which is my emulator of choice for a game like this. I also have EPSSXE, but that one tends to be a little bit more blocky as far as the presentation goes. For some reason, the way it reads the ISO, it tends to not come across as well, and it's not quite as smooth. So, again, I'm using PCSXR. Your success may vary. But again, your square button's your parry. You have your basic light attack, medium attack, heavy attack with your triangle and your circle button. You also have kicks with your circle button. Your X is a slightly smaller kick button. You can have throws, but they're hard to execute. And then it's all a matter of what you can do with the D-pad. And the problem with playing this game on a PS1 was that because they had not utilized the DualShock ability quite yet when this game came out, you're limited by what you can do with the D-pad. So you're able to do things like sidestep your enemy and roll and jump, but to jump you have to press up. To try and do a sidestep or parry, you have to do down, and then left and right is forward and backwards towards your enemy, and just try and stay out of the way. So, it for what you're able to do mechanics-wise, you've got some options, but there's also some limitations, because this was still so early on in what you were able to do with the PS1. And as you can see on the screen, we've got a time clock of about 40 seconds to finish a fight, as opposed to the usual 60 seconds you would get in Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat. So they up the ante a little bit by making you have less time available to dispatch your opponent, and we'll see what happens over the course of this playthrough for about the next 25 minutes or so. Let me see. So you can do low kick, you can do high kick. I was incorrect in that X is your parry, or X is your block button. But if you're not careful, they can come right through it. And then when you use the triangle and square button together, that gives you that curling attack that Mitsurugi has.
Battle 2. Fight.
My problem with games like this, and I say this purely from my own limitations as a player, is that I was never really good at being able to execute special attacks in this game like I could in other games. And as I demonstrated, much to my dismay, in King of Fighters, that can really come back and bite you in the butt. Now, as you just saw in this game, there's two ways you can win. You can knock your opponent out, or you can knock them out of the ring. And knocking them out of the ring isn't... Some people will find that and say it's a cheaper way to win a fight. in a game like this where you're limited by time, I figured why not? Anything goes. You know, don't be afraid to do it. And sometimes a kick can help take care of an opponent as much as anything else. Like Mitsurugi, if he can connect with a kick, he can do that hook kick up to the head and stagger an opponent long enough that you can come back in with your blade and do some damage there. Or you can do a thrust kick and launch your opponent right off the side. But the early difficulty curve in this game isn't too terrible. I mean, I've already gone through 2 characters and haven't lost a fight. It's by the time you get 4 or 5 in that you can have some trouble. And at a time where a lot of us were still playing Final Fantasy, or not Final Fantasy, I've got Final Fantasy on the brain because I got to get back to playing it tomorrow. Anyway, but at a time when a lot of us were playing Street Fighter II still, because there were a million different variations of it, as well as Mortal Kombat, and then Capcom was also coming out with their crossover titles. So you had like Marvel vs. Capcom, you had Capcom vs. SNK. You know, you were still seeing some Street Fighter or Samurai Showdown, and SNK was still coming out with a few more variations of their Neo-Geo titles. But by 95, 96, that had kind of run its course, which allowed Namco to jump in and take advantage of what they were doing with their 3D technology. And they had really jumped on it. So you had games like Soulblade, and then you also had driving games like Ridge Racer. They started doing a lot of the early PlayStation 1 games were all Namco titles. Sony really seized on the ability to generate that. And because you were able to get, much like the Neo-Geo, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago, the PS1 had the ability to come up with games in, or at least arcade ports, in near as makes no difference, 1-to-1 fidelity. You know, again, you weren't able to utilize a joystick like you could in the arcade version of Soul Edge, or Soulblade. I'm going to keep doing that throughout this whole thing, so you just have to excuse me, because when you have a game that has 3 different titles to it, it tends to get a little... You get a little, tongue-tied with it. But anyway, I remember when the PS1 came out, you had these predominantly Namco titles. So you had Soulblade, you had Ridge Racer, there was the original Ace Combat, which in the US was called Air Combat, you had Cyber Sled. There were, I think, 7 or 8 different games that came out, much in the same way that when the Nintendo Entertainment System came out in 1986, they leaned heavily on Rare to get a lot of their early games out. So you had things like Metroid and Super Mario Brothers and Kid Icarus and games like that that were all under the Rare umbrella until Rare ultimately branched off on their own. I gotta do something here about Sigma, because otherwise, I got her.
The grueling battle ended with the victory of
Sugmiya was always a character in the few times I played this. Because she has that big naginata, which is this bladed staff, and she can spin it around like that. She was merciless. Now, I am playing this on standard difficulty, by the way. Because it was an Namco port, there is a way that I'm aware of to, ow. I should be saying this like a soprano after that shot where she dropped the butt of that staff. Ow. Can I take her out? I've got, ooh! See, then you get the throw.
Stood against an impossible enemy. You lose.
And that was another unique feature of this game, that you have this narrator at the end of every fight. If you won, he compliments you on your ability to beat your opponent, and if you lost, it was you were met by an insurmountable adversary. Ah. Oh, boot to the head. I was trying to get her. Oh, I think this is a knockout. Ow! Up and over and power bomb for the loss. That's the problem I always have with fighting games, is that you can get that close and still get your butt handed to you. Ow! Stop going for the groin. But this is the trick you find out with fighting a character like Sung Mina, is that once you understand, if you do a quick tap down, you're able to do a sidestep. It would later be in later versions of this, you'd get stuff like a roll, and you'd be able to get out of the opponent's way. But having that puts you in a position where you can immediately strike, and then you can just tear through people. Now, this is not a guarantee with every character. It's and the characters were not so advanced that like they'd pick up on your attack on your move set like you might see in some later games, as the capabilities got a little bit smarter and they can anticipate certain patterns. Ow! Siegfried, be careful with that big pig sticker of yours. You're gonna put an eye out. Ow! Oh! For that, I will swat thee across the ring.
With the victory of Mitsurugi, you win.
Dude tried to use my spleen as a shish kebab. That was not cool.
Battle 2. Fight.
Now, I will also say, for point of reference on this, as a game I haven't played that much, I've also never beaten it. Alright, quit using your head, dude.
The grueling battle ended with the victory of Mitsurugi. You win.
And because you're running on a slightly faster clock, your reaction time has to be sharper.
Battle 1. Fight.
So you have to be able to anticipate when your opponent is coming in and know when to sidestep, when to parry, and when to just stand there and get your butt handed to you, because that hurt. See if I can get him. Oh, I thought he was going to sidestep that. Somehow, I got him on the downstroke as I followed through and pretty much cut his leg out.
Battle 2. Fight.
Now, you'll see up at the top that secondary gauge where my weapon is. As it's starting to whittle down, your blocks only last you for so long. You've got a finite amount of time to block. Go on now. Didn't need that lag. That wasn't helpful. Oh! And he gets that parry and then goes right at you with 4 or 5 shots. If I had been able to avoid that and the time ran out, I would have won, because my health at that point was better than what Huang had. And finally I get that crescent throw. Or that crescent swipe. Ow. There.
The grueling battle ended with the victory of Mitsurugi.
So that's 7 down.
Win.
And now we've got Li Long.
Battle 1. Fight.
Oh, Li Long and his bladed nunchucks. I remember playing against him on the arcade version of this and just hating those things because he could spin them so fast.
The grueling battle ended with the
But that went a lot easier than I expected.
You win. Battle 2.
And again, I'm not a great expert at this game. I haven't played it to be, if I'm truly honest with you, I haven't played this game in 25 years. But I've played enough fighting games to understand that if you can be patient and anticipate your opponent's attacks well enough, and know when they're going to try and come up and just basically gut you like a fish,
Mitsurugi stood again against
then your odds are going to be demonstrably better than if you just come into this all guns blazing. You have to have some variation of strategy.
Fight.
And that he's able to go down and hit me low like that is annoying. Oh, now a DDT for the loss.
The grueling battle ended with the victory.
Ow.
Of Li Long. You lose.
I may have potentially met my match here.
Will you challenge the enemy again?
Yes, I will challenge the enemy again because I want him gone. And in some ways, this is no different than even playing a game like Pro Wrestling, which I did back for my first Sports Saturday. Insofar that it all depends on which way you press on the D-pad at the time you attack. It determines what angle you're going to be hitting from. And we get him again with the first shot, and it's only because he jumped over us. He had us dead to rights when he did that sidestep. Now I just need to capitalize on this one. And fortunately, when you want to block, you can come in and hold the button down. Again, it is all a question of how long you can hold out before your block gauge expires. And then at that point, your opponent potentially has you in trouble. And who wins? I lost because he got me with that last hit. This might be one where, again, it will come down to... Ow. Who's got more life as the clock expires? Oh. And then he got me with that spin move. Sucked. Because now I got a problem. Because now I really need to hit him. But I can't... Oh!
The grueling battle ended with
Well, we may be here a while.
You lose. Will you challenge the enemy again? 9.
Well, I'll give him one more shot.
Fight.
Ow. Quit. Hassan Chop. There we go. Ah. Got overzealous. Oh! I thought I had him with less than a second to go, and then he pulls that move off and takes me out. Man.
Battle 2. Fight.
And we get the double stomp in the gonads to boot. Ah! Ow! Knock it off with the double stomp. Don't tell me he's going to get me again.
Time's up. You win.
I barely won. That was one where
Final battle. Fight.
I had no business being able to pull that one out. And we won by kicking him out of the ring.
With the victory of Mitsurugi,
Well,
you win.
it may not be the most sporting way, but it's legal, and I will take it. So now we have to fight Taki.
Battle 1. Fight.
Nice hook kick. Ow. Oh.
Mitsurugi stood against an impossible enemy. You lose.
Yeah, impossible would be right. I just got my keister handed me on a platter.
2. Fight.
Thank you, ma'am. May I have another? Oh. And we get the double hit. I thought for a second that she took me out,
Mitsurugi, you win.
but I happened to go right across the torso, and down she went.
Final battle. Fight.
Ow. I don't need that kidney, apparently. Hey! Oh. And the slide kick takes me out. Okay, well, we will go one more round.
You lose. Will you challenge the enemy? Battle 1. Fight.
But in a lot of ways, I think this series was a bit more underrated by comparison to a lot of the 3D games that came out at the time. Because it wasn't as well... Ow. And we get the moonsault to the back of the head to boot. Ouch. But by comparison to Street Fighter 2 and Mortal Kombat and all the other big name fighting titles of the day, and you have to remember, this is when Sega was still trying to hang on with the Sega Saturn, and Virtua Fighter was their big title. And then not long later, Namco came out with Tekken. And Tekken really was what put Namco on the map in terms of being a fighting game more than Soulblade did. But I think a lot of gamers... Whew, that almost... I don't know if we can get double knockouts in this one, but I certainly gave it a try. But
Final battle. Fight.
for what it is, you know, you need a little bit of strategy, you need a bit of tactical understanding, and you need a little bit of luck. It does help if you understand how the special attacks work, which I, again, recognize the fact that I don't. But I'm in good position here. And I got her.
Win.
Wow. Now we have Cervantes the pirate.
Battle 1. Fight.
And he immediately picks me up, skewers me like a kebab, and then takes out my spine for good measure. Ow. I think he has... Whoa!
Mitsurugi stood
Did I even get a hit in on him? I don't think I did.
You lose.
I got one hit. But it looks like Cervantes has both
Battle 2. Fight.
the Soul Edge and the Soulblade, upon which this series is aptly named. Ow! Am I even going to get a chance to beat him? Oy vey.
With the victory of Cervantes, you lose.
Offer your spirit.
Will you challenge the enemy?
Let's try one more time. Oh! But because there's 10 characters in this game, I believe I've already reached the last one, which is why Cervantes is so hard. Good night, nurse. Perfect!
Mitsurugi stood again against an impossible.
Man.
You lose. Battle 2. Fight.
And because he can follow through like that. Ugh. Well, I don't think I'll be able to beat him today.
Cervantes, you lose.
But that, in a nutshell, gang, is Soulblade, or Soul Edge, or Soulcalibur, depending on which variation of it you remember.
7.
So, in the meantime,
5.
if there are other games you would like to see me play across the 3rd, 4th, 5th, or 6th generation, by all means, drop me a line or here in the comments, or at our Twitter feed at @Retrocade. And as always, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and ring the bell for the latest content. We post 5 days a week, twice on the weekends. Don't miss out on our Sports Saturday feature as well. And then we are back to playing our first time walkthrough of Final Fantasy VI again tomorrow. So until then, I'm Ronin. Have a great rest of your weekend, everybody. And we'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye.